Harry the Green Engine usually pulls out of the harbor by the big station of the train that the railmen call the Flying Kipper. It was an early morning train that collected fresh fish from ships in the big harbor for shops in the town, and for other places far away. On this particular day, however, Sir Topham Hatt wanted Henry to pull an early bird special, so he asked Donald and Douglas to take the Flying Kipper. The twins had never pulled the train before, and were anxious about taking it. "I hope the poor old Smell isn't as bad as Henry says," said Donald. "Nonsense," put in Douglas. "It's bound to be worse than what Henry says." Maybe, but still. It's bound to be an awful smell that isn't as bad as what Henry says. He is prone, after all," Donald added. Donald and Douglas were not used to waking up so early in the morning. Their first goods train wasn't until 8:30 a.m., and 7 was early for the both of them. Their drivers and firemen woke them up the next morning at 5. The firemen stoked their fires, but the twins felt as if their pistons were too stiff to move at all. They were very tired, but slowly they began to warm up inside, and they puffed gently down into the harbor. The men were working very hard unloading this morning's catch. Donald and Douglas were coupled up to the train, but what happened then, no one knows. Perhaps the twins were rather sleepy, with Douglas being the most sleepy, or perhaps their drivers were tired too. But somehow, a crate full of fish fell from the crane, and landed onto Donald's tender and all over Douglas. Douglas woke with a start. "Oh!" moaned Douglas. "What a horrible smell! The last time I smelled fish this bad was back in Scotland." "Didn't you fuss yourself, Dougie?" said Donald. "At least the fish landed on my tender, so at least I don't have to worry about the smell." There was no time to waste, so the twins had to hurry to deliver the Flying Kipper. After the long journey with delivering the Flying Kipper, Donald and Douglas had to take a trainload of oil and fuel for Kildane. As they backed down onto the train, Stanley and Bear were the first to comment on the horrible smell. "What's that fishy smell?" asked Bear. "I wouldn't know," said Stanley, "but I'd say it's Donald and Douglas." Donald and Douglas felt very silly as they had to tell the two engines about what had happened. Douglas was embarrassed, but Donald was cross that they could notice the smell coming from his tender. As they stopped at Crovan's gate for a signal at danger, Sir Handel's passengers couldn't help noticing the smell either. "What's that awful smell?" they asked. "You'll have to ask Donald and Douglas," said Sir Handel. "I think they've been fishing." Poor Donald and Douglas had to keep on telling the embarrassing story over and over again, all morning. Everyone they passed and met noticed the fishy smell, and they all wanted to know what it was. At last, Donald and Douglas arrived at Kildane and rested in the yard. Douglas was fed up of smelling like fish, and Donald was fed up of his tender, since it smelled like fish as well. "Ugh, if this smell doesn't come off, we'll be the laughingstock of all of Sodor," complained Donald. "Ugh, whatever can we do?" asked Douglas. Sir Topham Hatt ordered the two engines to have a wash down at Knapford, and Gordon puffed past them.
"Just because it's called the Flying Kipper doesn't mean you both have to smell like fish,"
he called out. "But we don't smell like fish anymore," complained Douglas. But the engines all thought the subject was funny. Donald and Douglas both thought that they were being very silly indeed.